It's time for Africa World Hour with Tsepiso Makwetla. Stay tuned for insights, impact, and inspiration right here on Channel Africa. Available on the Channel Africa app.
$2100 hours. A very good evening to you. A warm welcome. This is Africa World Hour here on Channel Africa, the African perspective. A warm welcome to it live from our headquarters out here in Auckland Park, Johannesburg, as we bring you the very latest news developments. 60 minutes of happenings in and around your world, whether you're listening from the heart of the continent to other corners of the globe. We're happy to have you, and we'd like to get your perspectives on some of the stories that we're covering tonight. +27 63 406 9126. That's the WhatsApp hotline line if you want to reach out to us.
Tsepiso Makwetla winds it down on Africa World Hour, 9 to 10 p.m.
And let's start with this story now. Just a reminder that we are live on the SABC Plus app as well as on DSTV 802 audio channel. Now, we start with this. The African Peer Review Mechanism's 5th Youth Symposium, hearing a call for all African Union member states to integrate the youth agenda into entrepreneurship, trade, governance and education. The two-day event is taking place at the 6th Ordinary Session of the 6th Pan-African Parliament in Johannesburg, South Africa. It seeks to recognize and empower youth on the continent as agents of good governance. Nhlanhla Mahlangu has this report.
The 5th APRM Youth Symposium, held under the theme Youth in Governance from Promise to Prosperity, is a collaboration of the South African Department of Public Service and Administration and the Pan-African Parliament. The gathering brought together youth leaders, policymakers, parliamentarians, academics, and development partners from across Africa and the diaspora. It also serves as a strategic platform for intergenerational dialogue and evidence-based policy engagement, providing an opportunity to explore innovative ways to strengthen youth participation in governance, peace building, innovation, and economic transformation. Laila Dahi, chair of the Pan-African Parliament Youth Caucus, says young people need to be empowered.
We need to improve the youth skills. We also need to improve mental health and wellness as a key element. As you know, health is not a luxury. It has to be the standard. As we are closing on the 20th anniversary of the Pan-African Parliament, we need to make this an example with the young people at the core. The political framework allows, we want to move from paper to practical application. So we want to measure the progress, not just with the policies that are adopted, and we hope that the symposium will be the opportunity to respond to all these concerns on the minds of the young people.
Amongst the objectives of the symposium is to recognize and empower youth as agents of good governance and sustainable development, as well as strengthen interlinkages between AU institutions, national governments, and youth networks for participatory governance. Being Secretary General of the Pan-African Youth Union, called on leaders.
That's reporter Nhlanhla Mahlangu reporting there now. The Namibian government has cautioned that public education must be prioritized as countries gear up for the arrival of artificial intelligence technology. Namibian Minister of Information and Communication Technology, Emma Theophilus, was speaking on the opening day of the Africa Tech Festival in Cape Town, South Africa. It's aimed at charting a way forward for Africa's digital economy. Theophilus says Namibia is in the initial stages of building digital infrastructure and skills, but is concerned about the spread of misinformation using AI.
We see it being embraced in education, academia, in journalism, in the way people consume on social media platforms. What we don't see is it coming along with the digital literacy, the media literacy the public needs to have. You have deepfake videos and deepfake photos confusing those who cannot tell the fake thing from the real thing. You also see people being scammed out of their hard-earned money or being told they won a prize based on an AI-generated voice that sounds like a credible source.
International relations analyst Professor Bheki Mngomezulu says the G20 Leaders Summit in South Africa will continue with or without the US. This follows Donald Trump's decision not to send any official representative to this year's G20 meeting. Trump made the statement in a post on social media, Truth Social, saying, as long as the killing of Afrikaners continues, the US will not be part of the summit. Mngomezulu has dismissed the reasons for Trump pulling out of the summit.
President Trump not to attend the G20 should not come as a surprise, because already he has a position about South Africa saying that South Africa is killing white Afrikaners, which is factually incorrect. The main reason why he's doing this is because we took Israel to the ICJ, which didn't settle down well with him. And then also in the case between Russia and Ukraine, we didn't take a position as was expected. But his absence does not necessarily mean that the G20 will not continue. It will continue with or without him.
The BBC is facing calls to prioritise restoring trust with its audiences after the corporation's Director General and Head of News resigned following criticism of how a BBC documentary edited a speech by the US President Donald Trump. Tim Davie and Deborah Turner stood down after a leaked internal memo criticised the misleading editing of two parts of a speech that suggested Trump had explicitly encouraged the Capitol Hill riots in 2021. The BBC's Katie Razzle has those details.
The claims about the edit of President Trump's speech were very damaging to the BBC. The corporation needed to get on the front foot and either apologise or defend itself. I understand a statement had been prepared days ago to apologise, but that was blocked by the board. For a week, claims about the BBC and editorial bias were allowed to fester. It's a moment of real crisis for the corporation, and there will be questions about who governs it.
South Africa's Department of Basic Education says it has led the development of reading benchmarks for all 11 official languages. Minister of Basic Education, Siviwe Gwahobe, says the aim is to ensure learners are on track to read with comprehension by grade 4. She adds that the Funda Uphumelele National Survey provides a measurement of the percentage of children across all languages who meet these critical benchmarks at the end of grades 1, 2 and 3. This has been said during the launch of the survey in Pretoria.
Funda Uphumelele has deliberately placed great emphasis on home language because children learn to read more effectively in the language that they understand, in the languages of their homes. When you learn to read and join letters, for instance, INDLU together to form a word, indlu, it lights up the certain images in your mind. And that's how children are learning how to read. And so again, as I say, we are now realizing the true value of our home languages.
The Sudanese Doctors Union has accused the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces of removing hundreds of bodies from the streets of El Fasher to conceal alleged atrocities against civilians. The Sudan Doctors Network and some corpses were buried in mass graves while others were burnt. This man was displaced from El Fasher and described his experience.
There were killings, theft. You could get tortured and have your mobile phone and money taken from you. Many youngsters were humiliated. Several were killed right before our eyes. The streets were filled with bodies of young men. We were treated with cruelty.
Officials in Belgium say 3 drones have been detected flying above one of the country's 2 nuclear power plants. A spokesperson says there was no impact on the plant's operation. Yesterday, flights were temporarily halted at Liège Airport in eastern Belgium due to a drone sighting. The BBC's Joan Inwood has those details.
This all comes in the context of a war in Europe which has increasingly spread beyond the borders of Ukraine. In September, around 20 Russian drones flew over Poland. Some were shot down, with 3 fighter jets entering Estonian airspace a few days later. Russia has repeatedly denied hostile activities against Europe, But the continent is bolstering its defences, and many here believe they are engaged in a hybrid war.
1 hour, one continent, one voice. Africa World Hour with Tsepiso Makwetla on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
And at 10 minutes past 9, coming up on the program, we will be speaking to Dr. Peter Wandwasi, who is a research associate at the Middle East and Africa Research Institute, about Israel's president, Isaac Herzog, departing tomorrow for a rare state visit to Africa. It will be his second since he started taking office. But for now, let's tell you about what's happening in the city centre of Johannesburg. Informal traders who have been selling in the streets of the city of Johannesburg in South Africa, some for over 2 decades, have pleaded once again with authorities to allow them back to their trading spots as they continue providing for their families who depend on the income they make from selling. The informal traders have been affected by the cleaning up of the city of Johannesburg in South Africa, which was done without their knowledge, they say, with the authorities claiming that they were cleaning the city, which the court since ruled that the city must start with the process of registering the traders. Tuto Ngobeni compiled this report.
Non-profit human rights organization Socio-Economic Rights Institute of South Africa, SERI, and the South African Informal Traders Forum, SATIF, hosted an exhibition and panel discussion on Friday spotlighting the plight of informal traders in the city of Johannesburg. The event was meant to raise public awareness of the struggles the informal traders faced with the law. The event comes in less than a week following a court judgment ordering the city to accelerate the process of verifying and registering informal traders after an overnight blitz by the city last month, removing all traders in the streets without prior warning, despite some of them carrying permits. SERI has been in a years-long battle with the city on the constant harassment of traders and the failure by the authorities to follow the bylaws. Deborah Raduba, attorney at SERI, has accused the city of using the so-called clean-up of the city as political grandstanding for next year's local government elections.
One thing that they consisted in is harassing traders. And so in the beginning of October, overnight, I don't think there was any warning. I don't think any of you knew. I didn't. And then they just stopped trading in those areas. They started with dividends and moved on. And they even called the taxis and I think the biggest problem is we didn't know what was happening. On social media they said they're cleaning up. And I was wondering to myself, why are you saying you're cleaning up but you're removing human beings? Stuff, you can see that this is being used as a political campaign for election.
Meanwhile, Dr. Tanya Zek, researcher and urban planner, special analysis and city planning at the University of the Witwatersrand, says there's a need for the city to recognize the role the street traders play in Southern Africa's economy.
In the first instance, we would need to recognize this economy as big and as important in the city. We would recognize street traders as part of a big ecosystem of shopping and buying in Johannesburg for the rest of South Africa, for Southern Africa.
Zek says the city must also answer if it's following the bylaws.
Since 2013, we have seen the city implement its bylaws or tackle law enforcement in various ways. We're not seeing development. Let me just start with the law enforcement. If we're looking at the law in terms of the bylaws, are we also asking the question, are we turning that question back to the city to say, is the city complying with its bylaws? Is the city ensuring that its bylaws are relevant?
Brian Pallow, General Secretary at SATIF, says now that there's interest from big businesses, government now wants to give the space to them and is lying about the reasons of removing the street traders, whereas all this time these big businesses left the city and the street traders continued to keep the city alive by selling in this space.
So it's not true that the people that are trading in the villages, they are trading there unlawfully. It's not true that the city doesn't know those people. They're in a database of the city. They pay rentals, those people, to the city of Johannesburg. In their invoices, it is written If you are selling fruit and veg, when you receive your invoice, it will be written you are selling fruit and veg. Their invoices, they are written clothing. That today they are claiming that they don't know. That's why we decided to approach SARE and say, look, let's challenge this.
Some of the informal traders that attended this event, who have been selling in the streets with some for over 2 decades, have pleaded with the authorities to allow them back to their trading spots so they can continue providing for their families who depend on the income they make from selling.
We are asking for help. We want to help advance the South African economy to grow. We are not going anywhere. Please fix your issues and fix the permit issue so that we can go back to working, because we live off selling, and what you're doing is essentially killing us. We are old now, and if we're to die in my sleep now and they say Rosie is no more, it wouldn't be because of someone, but because of a broken heart, as we are not being allowed to make some money without bothering anyone.
After packing my stock, it gets taken away and I run away and fall and crawl with my knees. And I don't have a young man to help me. The counselor will come and tell us to move and tell us not to sell here because it's not allowed. I don't know where I will sell in South Africa because we are not wanted. We were allocated spots and we pay a monthly fee for those trading permits without fail.
For Channel Africa News, I am Tito Ngobeni in Johannesburg.
And that brings the time to 16 minutes past 9. Now, Israel's President Isaac Herzog departs tomorrow for a very rare state visit to Africa, his second to the continent since taking office, in a tightly packed 24-hour trip. Herzog will visit Zambia and the Democratic Republic of Congo, underscoring what his office calls the importance Israel places on strengthening ties with Africa. The visit to Lusaka follows a recent reopening of the Israeli embassy in Zambia, a move seen as part of Israel's renewed diplomatic and economic engagement across sub-Saharan Africa. Observers say the trip may focus on security cooperation, technology partnerships and support for agricultural innovation areas where Israel has long sought to expand its influence. We speak now to Dr. Peter Wandwasi, Research Associate, Middle East and Africa Research Institute. A very good evening to you and thank you so much for speaking to us.
Hi, good evening to you and good evening to the viewers.
So let's just first start with these two countries and look at Israel's history with them in the past and why they're being seen as strategic for the president of Israel to make his second visit ever to Africa.
Thank you so much. I think we should straight the conversation within the historical context. The Israeli-Africa relations have had a long and rich history dating back centuries. It's not that it just started today. While there has been lapses, of course, of diplomatic engagement between the State of Israel and African countries over the past years, this historical relationship has indeed endured the test of time. You may recall the recent millennium has indeed witnessed a resurgence of heightened re-engagement between the State of Israel and African countries. This re-engagement has indeed resulted in increased diplomatic engagement between a significant number of African countries and the State of Israel. You may recall in September 2016, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, together with the Israeli ambassador to the UN, Dan Denon, met with African leaders on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly and proposed a re-energized engagement to discuss Israeli innovations in Africa. Prime Minister, indeed, at that meeting, proposed to African governments, African leaders, that indeed Africa excites his imagination, and he proposed a partnership with every African countries. That same year, you may recall, on 8th December 2016, a joint declaration of intent to promote bilateral agricultural cooperation between the State of Israel and the Economic an ECOWAS, Economic Community of West African States, in accordance with UN 2030 Sustainable Development Goals, signed a bilateral agreement. Now, in practice, Israel has engaged with various African countries over a period of time in implementing several interventions through state actors such as myself towards the realization of food security on the African continent. And you may recall, therefore, that in Kenya, they have actually engaged in innovative irrigation systems in semi-arid and arid areas of the Turkana region. So, President Isaac Herzog's visit to Africa is indeed a re-engineering of that historical relationship that has endured the test of time.
Okay, so when you talk about a re-engineering of that relationship, I mean, what we saw is the opening of that embassy in Lusaka occurred after, I think it's about 3 decades, so this means they're re-establishing a relationship. So surely there must be a reason that exists for them to strengthen relations, because they would have at some point been weakened.
Yes, indeed. I think recently we all realized that Israel has had quite significant breakthroughs in the technological innovations, particularly in food security, in advancing food security technological innovations. And part of that is actually to help African countries to strengthen food security systems, and also ensure that they actually, through such exchanges, there are quite significant mutual benefit that would accrue towards both countries, particularly in the case of Zambia and Israel.
So then the question becomes, and it's a one-day trip of 2 countries. There's the strategic and there's the symbolic, but what will actually occur in terms of real strengthened relationships of which are equal to both parties? And I'm talking about the individual bilateral relations between Israel and DRC, Israel and Zambia, against a backdrop of very tense relations, particularly for the global south, given how Israel's actions in Palestine have been criticized and rebuked.
Yes, indeed. I think this re-engagement also enables a new story to be told, and probably a true story to be told about what probably could have been misinformation that has been peddled against the state of Israel. I'm aware there could have been issues that perhaps have been said that could not have been true, but I think this re-engagement provides an opportunity for the truth to be told. And
okay,
this, I think, is the beginning.
I'd like you to just step back a bit. What has been the misinformation about the killings that have been occurring in Gaza?
I think what has happened is that there has not been significant truth told as to the cause that led to the engagement, the armed engagement of the state of Israel into Gaza. One of the things that you may have realized, there was the October 11 invasion, the October 7th invasion of innocent citizens who were indeed, celebrating on Sabbath evening. And, what one could have continuously learned from that is that there is existential threat that the state of Israel faces, and it is in their best interest indeed to protect their own selves. And I think that could have been some of the misinformation that could not have been told, that there was an invasion of Israel on October 7th, 2023. Yes.
So the diplomatic positions on countries like South Africa, who've gone to the ICJ, and others who support the action, would then fall into, according to what your understanding is a misinformation, disinformation campaign, which would naturally, from what you're saying, suggest that it was no way that the Israeli president would have made a pit stop in South Africa?
I think there's need. I would imagine that there's a need for continuous engagement between the state of Israel and South Africa within the context of the case at the ICJ. I would also argue that I think conversations should continue to find out the lasting solutions. The historic part of this, which probably was not told, was that even the UN indeed through Resolution 181 petitioned the land of Palestine into two, one for the Jews and one for the Arab state. But the Arab state indeed historically refused to take that option. And that also signifies the historicity of the conflict.
And I'm finding your perspective quite interesting in the sense that you're framing it as Israel is having better relations with these two countries because of the misinformation campaign that you say is being peddled about what is happening in Gaza to Palestinian people. And is it from where you see perhaps a commonality in the framing of Christian solidarity, of ensuring that there is no risk in deepening religious or political polarizations in African society? So are you suggesting that Israel's visit is clearly aimed at that it's aware of the tenuous relationships that it has with, say, the African Union, for instance? That it achieved observer status, and that was something that was also not welcomed by many in the African Union.
I think there are great opportunities for continuous diplomatic engagement between the state of Israel and African countries, particularly those African countries that still believe that there are, certain information that they have not had access to understand the history of the conflict. But what I know is that I have been a student of diplomatic history, both linking the evolution of the state of Israel, but also on the other hand, I've understood that there has been a lack of acknowledgement of the fact that the state of Israel has a right to exist. And that has been one of the underlying causes. And if African countries and the broader South would wish to actually understand, it would be important to begin to engage with the state of Israel and have to ask them hard questions regarding the history and the underlying causes. Christianity plays a very significant role in unifying humanity. However, Christianity must also be accompanied by truth-telling. And part of this process is that when the president of Israel visits Africa, he's also ready to begin to engage with African governments and be asked questions, and indeed I believe he will be able to answer this.
You keep saying truth-telling. So are you suggesting that any position that speaks to genocidal acts by Israel in Palestine is actually misinformation?
I think the definition of genocide is relative, depending on the perspective from which it is being propagated. But my view is that, there are always, occupational hazards in any course of war. And it is sad that indeed innocent people lost their lives as a result of the invasion.
On the one hand, you say it's relative. Genocide is relative. How many Palestinians need to die for you to feel that it needs to be denoted genocide? But also, you say it's almost as if it's an occupational hazard. Yes, it's a part of a conflict, and I think many people would understand that in wars, people unfortunately die. But is it acceptable? And I really am trying to understand you. And some might accuse me of, why am I asking you this? It's just the manner in which you're framing it that I'm really interested to know. Is your position that anybody that is critical of Israel and of its actions basically part of this misinformation propaganda campaign?
I think we must be very clear that indeed no one wishes, the loss of life are on all directions or even on both ends. However, there has also to be a recognition that states must actually, they have a right to protect themselves. And where there is a sense of existential threats that are mainly propagated against one state, that state has a right to defend itself. There are obviously people who will lose lives, and which is indeed regrettable that lives have to be lost on both sides of the conflict. And that should be something that all states involved must indeed work to avoid.
I think I am going to end it here because I really had not anticipated that we would be discussing this issue in that way. Dr. Wandwasi, and that is focusing on what you see as a campaign against Israel because of countries who are speaking out about the killings in Gaza. Dr. Peter Wandwasi, Research Associate, Middle East and Africa Research Institute, speaking to us about the 2-country visit that is going to be made by Israel's President Isaac Herzog tomorrow for Africa, and that is 2 countries that'll be part of that visit, Zambia and the Democratic Republic of Congo.
We are on Open Views Audio Bouquet. Channel 628. Tsepiso Makwetla winds it down on Africa World Hour, 9 to 10 p.m.
And it is now just about 28 minutes to 10. You are listening to Channel Africa, the African Perspective, and the show is African World Hour, 60 minutes of the latest news in and around the continent and beyond. And this time we talk about the South African Commission of Inquiry into allegations of efforts or attempts to halt the investigation or prosecution of Truth and Reconciliation Commission cases that had been adjourned to the 26th of November 2025. The adjournment follows an objection concerning evidence leader, Advocate Ishmael Semenya, senior counsel, who previously advised the National Prosecuting Authority on a prosecution policy later declared unconstitutional, a policy that may have contributed to the very issues now under investigation. Channel Africa's Michael Mbewe reports.
Chaired by retired Constitutional Court Justice Sisi Kampepe, the Commission seeks to uncover why hundreds of cases identified by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in 1995 for possible prosecution were never pursued. 22 families of the victims sued South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa for about $9.7 million in damages for the delays in the TRC cases, where a total of 150 TRC cases recommended for prosecution. Most had never been enrolled. The proceedings began on Monday at the Sayabono Discovery Center in Johannesburg, with arguments surrounding evidence leader Advocate Ishmael Semenya, who is believed to have advised the NPA to take a prosecution policy of amnesty. Here is retired Concord Judge Sisi Kampepe.
We consider it prudent that before oral evidence is presented to the Commission must hear objections, and in particular, the issue of recusal, which has been sharply raised by Advocate Moroka on behalf of the Department of Justice and Advocate Gwala on behalf of the National Prosecuting Authority. At this stage, I would like to invite Advocate Moroka to hear her on the issue of recusal.
Representing the Department of Justice, Advocate Khomotso Moroka responded.
If I may start off by referring to the final prayer in our papers.
Yes.
What we have said there is that we are pursuing the objection today. We made it very clear that today is not an application for recusal of Mr. Semenya.
Yes.
The minister wrote a letter to the commission personally to say she has concerns and she's minded to move an application for recusal.
Yes.
I am not here instructed to do that today.
Yes.
So
yes.
For today, I'm pursuing the objection that was raised
Yes.
at the second hearing of the commission.
In seeking clarity on how should this inquiry proceed with this issue at hand, Justice Kampepe posed the following question to Advocate Moroka.
And Ms. Moroka, how do you propose we deal with the issue of recusal? Because it seems to be foremost in these proceedings. If we proceed with the objections without the issue of recusal having been settled, where is that going to leave us?
In clarifying the matter, Advocate Moroka told Commissioner Chairperson Sisi Kampepe that in case Semenya is conflicted, another evidence leader would lead the witnesses.
If you look at our notice of objection, we had indicated that we abide by a ruling, the ruling that said that for purposes of the issues that Semenya may or may not have been conflicted, another evidence leader will lead those witnesses. We have indicated, we've stated in our objection that we abide that ruling. So we do not have for the moment any application before you because I'm made to believe your response was that a substantive application must be brought. We haven't brought that application.
After 10 minutes of adjournment, the Commissioner's chair made the following ruling.
Application for the recusal of Advocate Semenya. It is directed that the National Prosecuting Authority and the Department of Justice are to file their founding papers in the application for recusal by Wednesday, the 12th of November, and answer thereto by Monday, the 18th of November, a reply, if any, by Thursday, the 20th of November. Written argument is to be filed by the parties by Monday, the 24th of November, and oral argument is to be heard on Wednesday, the 26th of November, 2025. Thank you. The proceedings are adjourned.
Reacting to the postponement, South African Minister of Human Settlements and former Minister of Justice Tsepiso Makwetla, whose sister Nokuthula was killed by apartheid security forces in 1983, shared her frustration.
We will wait patiently. We hope to arrive at the truth at a particular time. But if the pace can be picked up, it's very much appreciated. What angers me more is that the state did not discover the registration of Semenya this morning. They knew. So they could have approached the chair, they could have approached the commission, they could have filed their papers if they are not in agreement with Advocate Semenya than us coming in this shabby manner to come and withdraw or put into a hold the hearings. Everybody has been registered. We have always been having Howard Vani, Murray, yours as family member. We don't have any other creativity that we can do or bring to the fore. And I think the state, when it set the inquiry, it should have read it itself. I mean, I become livid actually when I get to think about it. But it's okay. We work with what we have.
We also spoke with Lukanyo Galata, whose father fought Galata, one of the 4 anti-apartheid activists from Cradock, known collectively as the Cradock 4, was assassinated by the apartheid government in 1985. Galata said these kinds of delays are unfortunately not surprising.
Well, we're not surprised because remember, if you can deny someone justice for murder, what does it mean to you not to cooperate with a commission of inquiry? And unfortunately, this is what we've seen from our government, whether it's Ramaphosa's government, whether it was Zuma's government, or whether it was Mbeki's government. This obfuscation, this lack of taking TRC matters seriously is something that is a thread in these various administrations, and it's sad to see because the ANC is in government because of the sacrifices of our fathers and many others who laid down their lives for this freedom that we enjoy today.
Oral hearings will commence on the 26th of November 2025. Michael Mbewe, Channel Africa News, Johannesburg.
The mining ministers of Botswana and Angola recently met in Gaborone to discuss closer cooperation in the diamond industry. The talks come as the 2 southern African nations explore ways to jointly take control of De Beers, the diamond giant owned by Anglo-American Botswana, which holds a 15% stake in De Beers and supplies around 70% of its rough diamonds, regards the company as a strategic national asset, even as falling global diamond prices continue to weigh on its economy. Channel Africa's economics reporter Innocent Samosa.
Angola, which initially expressed interest in acquiring a minority stake in De Beers, has now tabled a bid for a controlling share, a move that could spark a bidding contest with its neighbor. During a meeting briefly opened to the media, Botswana's Minister of Mines, Boholo Joy Kinewedu, and Angola's Minister of Mineral Resources, Petroleum and Gas, Diamantino Pedro Azevedo, discussed opportunities for cooperation in the diamond sector as well as in energy and logistics. Political economist Kevin Tutani shares economic implications for Southern Africa if Botswana and Angola gains control of De Beers, given the current global slump in diamond prices.
Well, I would say as Angola and Botswana, if they do manage to get control of De Beers, for Southern Africa, this obviously will most likely embolden the governments within the region, that they also have to ensure that they're diligent and take control of their destinies. You know, remember, when it comes to diamonds, with regards to Botswana, they determine 90% of, they actually make up 90% of Botswana's exports and are around 30% of GDP, you know, a sizable amount of government revenue as well. So it is quite sensible for the government of Botswana to want to get more involvement. I mean, it only has 15% stake in De Beers at the moment.
However, he maintains that control should be exercised through reasonable means.
But advisably, that determination to have greater control should be within reasonable means and not on the basis of, senseless expropriation. Regarding to, how it might affect investor confidence, within and regional cooperation in the mining sector, well, investor confidence might be hampered, particularly if these countries, as Botswana and Angola, drive at their goal in a more of a violent manner.
Angola's Mines Ministry said in a statement that the two ministers discussed the interest of both countries in acquiring shares in the multinational De Beers, but did not provide more details. How might a potential bidding war between Botswana and Angola affect investor confidence and regional cooperation in the mining sector? Tutani explains.
Remember, if they want to have controlling stake in this company in De Beers, they have to do their best to expropriate with compensation. We really don't want to call it expropriation, particularly because when it comes to De Beers, we understand that De Beers is ready to do an initial public offering on the stock exchange. That's number one. And it's also willing to do a private placement by selling that majority stake without going the way of the stock market. So the management of De Beers has actually expressed intention to let go of this stock in a professional manner, such that there's no need for expropriation.
As Botswana and Angola weigh their next moves, the outcomes could reshape the balance of power in the global diamond trade and refine Africa's role in controlling its own mineral wealth. Whether collaboration or competition prevails, both nations are signaling a new era of assertiveness in the continent's resource economy. For Channel Africa News, I'm Innocent Samos in Johannesburg.
The 2025 Diabetes Summit begins today in Johannesburg, South Africa, just days ahead of the World Diabetes Day on Friday, the 14th of November. The summit is hosted by a non-profit organization, Diabetes Alliance of South Africa, which advocates for the rights of people with diabetes and work in the space of diabetes prevention and care. The theme for the summit is Innovate for Impact, transforming the future of diabetes in South Africa. Diabetes is the leading cause of death in South Africa. Sisi Sekhalo has more.
Diabetes Alliance of South Africa says that over the years, there's been a number of innovations in terms of management, monitoring, prevention, and many others. They say that those innovations are, however, not just limited to devices and drugs. They also include new ways of doing things, like using social media or WhatsApp to educate patients. However, they elaborate that in the public sector, where the majority of patients are receiving care, these innovations are not available. Chairman of the Diabetes Alliance of South Africa, Dr. Patrick Ngasa Pioti, says that will be their focus.
We'll be talking about management and access to care, surveillance, and research. Surveillance means really to track the condition. You won't believe me, but as it is now, we are not able to know how many people exactly have diabetes in South Africa. If we don't know how many are there, how can we manage the condition effectively? So that's first where we should innovate. We should innovate in having systems that allow us to track the condition and being aware of how many people are having the condition, how many are having complications, how many are well controlled, and so on and so forth, so that we are able to allocate resources effectively. Another theme is education. People living with diabetes need education to really take control of their conditions.
Healthy Living South Africa HEALA is a social justice organization which campaigns for access to affordable and nutritious food for all. They are a community partner in the summit. The Chief Executive Officer of HEALA, Nzama Mbalati, shares some of the work that they do and how it connects with the summit.
As Dr. Pioti has been talking about, that diet also plays a critical role in the epidemic of diabetes. So we've been running campaigns, including nutrition literacy, with grassroots movements like your Treatment Action Campaign, South African Council of Churches, students, at basic education and tertiary level. We have limited resources, but we have been trying to galvanize the literacy and the understanding, and also people campaigning for access to food in their own localities.
Doctors Without Borders also held a webinar as World Diabetes Day approaches this week. The organization highlighted the importance of creating interventions that are patient-centered, that would respond to the context and the environment in which they work. The organization's access to products for health regional advisor for Africa is Candice Sehoma.
So part of that is, introducing tools that would be patient-centered, and one of those is insulin pens. So insulin is one of the sort of treatments that is used for treating, type 1 and also in some cases type 2 diabetes. And as MSF, one of our priorities are around the administration of insulin.
16-year-old Tabile, whose real name we can't reveal because she's a minor, lives with type 1 diabetes, having been diagnosed with the illness when she was only 13. Although it was once a difficult period, she says she has now come to terms with her condition. This is her message for the upcoming World Diabetes Day.
Just for everyone to be more aware of what exactly is diabetes, because a lot of the time there are a lot of stereotypes and ideas that are associated with diabetes, which aren't necessarily true. The idea that it's caused by eating lots of sweets, or that it only happens to people who are unhealthy, and those kind of ideas I find are really harmful to people who are living with the condition, and also people who are living without it, because you're just generally misinformed. I'd say it's very important for us to support each other, and especially if you're friends with someone who's living with diabetes, but also as a society in general.
Tapiwa's 12-year-old son suffers from type 1 diabetes, which the doctors believe could be a combination of heredity, environmental factors, and viral infection. Her journey with her son hasn't been an easy one. However, she admires her son's resilience.
I think for his age, I would like to give him credit. He has shown a remarkable resilience, but also he has struggled with depression, and I've had to take him to a clinical psychologist. I've also had to take him to a pediatric psychiatrist. I think it's getting better with time, but it still weighs on him. It does.
According to research by the University of Wits, diabetes affects about 12% of South Africa's adult population. It says death rates in South Africa have declined slightly during the past few years, but the country faces a steady rise in both death and disability caused by increases in non-communicable diseases such as diabetes and cancer. For Channel Africa, I'm Sisi Segalo in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Johannesburg, South Africa is where we are indeed broadcasting from. This is Africa World Hour here on Channel Africa, the African perspective. And coming up after Africa World Hour is African Diaries. So let's open the first page of the week. Sheila and Dukumana, what are we likely to find this Monday?
Can I scribe in this diary and talk about the weather? What is happening? I'm sorry. 2 seconds it's hot, and then it's cold, and then you strap up.
When they tell you,
We threw our papers in the dustbin. What else? We stopped the prize.
I'm like,
what else?
This is such. I mean, they say it's the rainy season, but it's actually cold.
No, it's cold, and then it's hot, and then it's somewhere in between. Then it's raining, then it's not raining. I'm a little confused.
Well, maybe the weather's a little confused too. So.
Okay, that's a fair.
There's confusion all around.
That is fair. I think one thing that could relieve the confusion is solo travel. Do you travel by yourself?
Very, very, very often.
Oh, yeah? Is that a frequent thing? Why do you do it?
I like it.
What do you like about it?
Well, I mean, like... Okay, so first is convenience, right? Because I'm not consulting anybody about their
schedule.
Yeah, and
pockets.
Whatever. Like if I'm thinking and where I want to go, I go where I want to go. I do what I want to do. I was actually saying to my cousin the other day that the thing about going on a holiday or whatever with someone is that you have to be mindful of maybe the times you want to get up, that they want to get up too, what you feel like eating at that very moment. Are they in the so you're dividing a lot of it's just nice to just have you to look after, man. And when you feel like getting up, so I also sleep in spurts. So if I'm up at like 2 o'clock in the morning and I feel like starting a movie and grabbing some ice cream, that's what I'm gonna do.
That is fair. We are seeing a trend rising, right? So we've seen a 40% increase over the past 2-3 years. And we've seen that about 84% of these travelers are women.
Yeah.
Right? Which I think is really interesting. So we are going to be looking at why solo travel. What is it about solo travel now? And then we're also going to be talking about the psychology, because there are some benefits, right? So it will boost your ability to be self-sufficient. It boosts your awareness. Basically, you are more cognizant of your surroundings, and that for me is critical thinking is increased. So much to look at, but also there is a narrative that suggests that people isolate through solo travels, and you then develop almost like a shield. Yes.
People say that, but I think it just depends on your personality, because I was thinking about, it's always been like that for me, that I've never even had to think about, am I traveling alone or with people? And it doesn't mean I can't do that.
Yeah.
But I also just do have a 5-2 clock, after a while of being together for a very long.
Then you want to clog out.
Hi.
What if it's the solo travels? What if it's you having found so much enjoyment just by yourself that people drain your social battery very quickly?
People say that, but I just think that we don't relate the same to everybody, right? So there are people I can talk to for a very long time and not feel it. The people I can be with for a very long time and not feel it. But I was going to say, you're making me think of why there are more women traveling solo. Have you seen that documentary Love Rats?
No.
Okay.
Tell me more.
Have a look at it. Just go to YouTube and Love Rats.
Okay.
So there's a lot of European women who travel to West Africa. I think they're starting in East Africa too. Enough said.
Listen, just on that very point, we're going to be looking at traveling by yourself while you're in a couple as well. So while you're in a relationship,
that you travel.
So do you think it's a good thing to do that? Do you think that there are limitations to that prospect?
No, I mean, you should trust each other enough to know that if I think it's good for couples to have their alone times and do the things that they do by themselves. I mean, we should be trusting each other enough, right?
Yeah.
And there's nothing I can do to stop you, actually.
That's true.
You know?
That's true. I think my last question to you is, what is a complete write-off when it comes to activities that you can do without your partner? Let me give you a list. Let's make this interesting.
My mind travels to so many places.
Tell me.
I go on.
Okay, so my list is number one, workout sessions. So we're good. These are activities and not necessarily travel. Yeah, workout sessions with friends of the opposite gender. Think of the opposite gender. This is the main priority, because with your girlfriends, it's okay, right? If you and your girlfriends do X and your partner's like, okay, you guys can do that. But if it's with the opposite gender, is a problem. Okay, first, workout travels, or rather workout sessions. 2, indoor dinner date. So you haven't seen your friend who was a high school buddy and he decides, listen, I'm going to cook. Do you want to pull through? And you're like, yeah, sure. Is that a crime? 3, vacation out of the country. Okay.
You were a member of the opposite sex.
Yeah, because I mean, you're going to go visit your friend who lives in London. You're based in South Africa. They're going to show you around. You're going by yourself. Is this a crime? Last 2, spa date. Okay. And then night out.
Speaking of spa dates, I saw very interesting. I think it's on TikTok. So it's 2 friends, and then the whole conversation I think is happening in East Xhosa, and they say, "Hi, man, people are always questioning me why." And they're like, "Yeah, I mean, we even sleep in the same hotel room together, and we're friends." And and it got me thinking about how people view relationships and their expectations.
Yeah.
So they're just saying, but we're both married. We both got our own people.
You see, I was okay until you said we sleep in one bed. What are you doing in that one bed? Why?
They're just having friendship time talking.
They're talking. Why can't you catch up over a table and food?
Akira, you're wearing your pura gowns from the massage.
Tell me, which one for you is completely illegal? No one should ever be thinking of doing it.
You know, I think I can say so many things.
Yeah.
Boundaries are important, and every relationship's boundaries are going to be different.
Yeah.
But just to end off, you know, I remember speaking to someone and we're saying, in all honesty, can platonic relationships between the opposite sex exist? Or actually people that you would naturally be attracted to sexually?
Yeah.
Men mostly believe no. Women think it's very possible.
Do you think it's possible?
I think so, but then you also learn somewhere down the line that you think it's possible, but the other person is...
Yeah, no, they're in a different possibility land. They are thinking otherwise. I don't think it's possible.
You don't think it's possible?
No, I've learned that.
But that's what I'm saying. Yeah. You as the woman, or as the prey,
and the predators. Listen, I think that sums it up for the show this evening.
I think that also sums it up for Africa World Hour. But perhaps we'll end with this. Joy replaced struggle for 3 families in Orange Farm, located at the southernmost part of the city of Johannesburg in South Africa, as they turned keys in doors they once only dreamed of. For the first time, these families had a place to call home after 30 years of waiting to be allocated homes. The homes were built by volunteers, including Channel Africa's colleagues, starting during the Mandela Day in July this year. Volunteers, corporate teams, and neighbors stood side by side, proving that unity still builds miracles. Dimakazo Lishoro has those details.
In the heart of Orange Farm, a ripple of change began to spread, one brick, one wall, and one dream at a time. For many families here who've been living in shacks, home has always been a hope, not a guarantee. But this Mandela Day, hope turned into something solid, something they can touch. Habitat for Humanity, alongside corporate partners like Henkel, Sanlam and ABSA joined hands to build homes for those who needed them the most. Stefano Bozelli from Henkel recalls how it all began.
I immediately spoke with my team in order to understand if there was the willingness to take part of this, and everyone was super engaged.
Yeah.
So that was the start.
This was not the first one. How do you feel about, you've heard some of the comments from the beneficiaries. I'm sure some of it you couldn't hear because they were speaking vernacular, but I mean, you saw the emotion, right? Yeah. How do you feel about the impact that you've contributed to this?
That's really the part that will stay also personally in my memory forever, like seeing the emotion, seeing that we are creating an impact.
He says what started as a corporate project quickly became something deeply personal. Teams traded office shoes for boots, rolling up their sleeves to help lay foundations of dignity.
It's the company that funded, but we are part of our company, and we spend also time as a team together to support, to contribute, and also actually to do, because we also were taking part few days of the construction of the house.
For Sanlam's employee volunteering program manager Mbali Majola, the experience was just as transformative.
It was tough. It was hard over 5 days. We are not constructive people. We are in offices. However, what we really realized as the Sanlam Group and the Sanlam Foundation was the team spirit that came through, and that just was very prominent as people were building.
And that report there by Dimaka Zolishoro from us here at Africa World Hour. Thanks for joining us. Do enjoy the rest of your viewing, listening here on Channel Africa. Up next, Sheila and Kumana with African Diaries. This is going to be an interesting one.
We are on Open Views Audio Bouquet.